The morning sun cast rainbow light through the crystal spires of Luminar as Ambassador Kai walked the floating gardens above the city. The Zorathian capital stretched endlessly below him, its buildings growing from living crystal that sang soft melodies in the wind. Children played in parks made of pure light, while their parents tended gardens that bloomed with flowers from 1,000 worlds. Peace had ruled this world for 500 years, and Kai believed it would rule for 500 more. Kai touched the smooth surface of his communication device as he reached the council chambers. The High Council was meeting today to discuss their latest trade agreements with the peaceful species of the galaxy. The Zorathians had built their civilization on sharing knowledge and helping others grow. Their medical technology had saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Their energy crystals powered cities on planets that had never known such abundance. In return, they received art, music, and friendship from grateful species who saw them as guardians of peace. Commander Bin stood waiting at the entrance to the council building. His uniform was pure white with silver threading that marked him as leader of the Zorathian Defense Fleet. The Defense Fleet was more of a rescue service than a military force. Their ships carried medical supplies and emergency equipment to help worlds struck by natural disasters. The largest weapons they carried were mining lasers that could clear debris from shipping lanes. Nobody had attacked anyone in this sector of space for centuries. Ambassador Kai, we need to discuss the readings from our deep space sensors, Commander Bin said as they walked into the crystal halls. Our monitoring stations have detected some unusual energy patterns at the edge of our system. Kai nodded, but was not concerned. The Zorathians monitored space around their world to watch for ships in distress or asteroids that might threaten inhabited planets. Sometimes their sensors picked up strange readings from distant stars or passing comets. What kind of patterns, Commander Bin? Large ones, Bin replied. Very large. Senior scientist Yuna is waiting to brief the council about her findings. They entered the council chamber where 12 Zorathians sat in a circle of floating crystal chairs. Each council member represented one of the major cities on their world. Yuna stood in the center holding a data crystal that projected images into the air above them. Her long silver robes marked her as one of their most skilled scientists. She had studied energy patterns and space phenomena for over 2 centuries. Honored council members, Yuna began. 3 days ago, our deep space arrays detected massive energy signatures approaching our system. At first, I believed these were natural phenomena, perhaps a group of asteroids with unusual mineral composition or radiation from a distant stellar event. The crystal projection showed waves of energy moving through space toward their system. The waves were enormous, stretching across light years of distance. Whatever was causing them had to be incredibly powerful. However, Yuna continued, the energy patterns are too regular and too focused to be natural. They pulse in organized sequences and maintain precise formation even across vast distances. I have concluded that these readings represent artificial constructs of tremendous size. Ambassador Kai felt a cold sensation in his chest. Artificial constructs? You mean ships? Yes, Ambassador. Ships larger than anything we have ever seen or imagined. The energy readings suggest a fleet of vessels, each one hundreds of times larger than our biggest transport ships. They are moving directly toward our world. Commander Bin stepped forward. When will they arrive? At their current speed, approximately 18 hours, Yuna answered. The council chamber fell silent. Zorathians lived for thousands of years and had excellent memories. None of them could remember ever hearing of ships that large or any species that built such vessels. The peaceful traders and explorers they knew traveled in small ships designed for efficiency and comfort, not massive constructs that blazed across space like moving stars. Perhaps they are explorers from a distant part of the galaxy, suggested Council Member Day from the northern crystal cities. Maybe they come in large ships because they travel very far from home. Or refugees, added Council Member Lin from the ocean settlements. If their world was destroyed by some natural disaster, they might need huge ships to carry their entire population. Ambassador Kai hoped they were right, but something felt wrong about this situation. The energy readings showed too much power, too much organized force. These ships burned through space like they were racing toward battle, not like peaceful explorers or desperate refugees. Commander Bin, what is the status of our defense fleet? Kai asked. We have 47 vessels currently in our system, Bin replied. Most are patrol ships and transports. Our largest ships carry mining equipment and medical supplies. We could evacuate perhaps 10,000 people if needed, but our ships are not designed for large-scale population movement. And weapons? Bin looked uncomfortable. We have defensive screens and some mining tools that could be used as weapons in an emergency. Our ships were never designed for combat, Ambassador. We have not fought a real war in 500 years. Senior scientist Yuna manipulated her data crystal, and the projection changed. Now it showed their own system with Zorathia Prime at the center, surrounded by their peaceful cities and orbital platforms. The approaching energy signatures appeared as massive red shapes at the edge of the display, moving steadily inward. There is something else, Yuna said quietly. I have been analyzing the electromagnetic signatures from these ships. They emit patterns I have never seen before. Their energy systems seem to be biological in nature, not mechanical like our technology or that of other species we know. Biological ships? Council member Wu from the mountain settlements asked. Like living creatures? Possibly. Or ships, grown rather than built. The energy patterns pulse like heartbeats and change like breathing. Whatever these beings are, they use technology completely different from anything in our databases. Ambassador Kai felt his worry growing stronger. In 5 centuries of peace, the Zorathians had met many different species. Some used crystal technology. Like themselves, others preferred metals and electronics. Still others worked with pure energy or exotic materials. But all of them had been peaceful. All of them had been friendly. None had ever approached their world with such massive force. We should send a greeting message, suggested Council Member Hyun from the Southern Valleys. Let them know they are welcome here and offer assistance if they need it. Agreed, Kai said. Commander Bin, have your communication specialists prepare a standard first contact message. Include offers of medical aid, supplies, and safe harbor if they require it. As Commander Bin worked on the message, Yuna continued studying her readings. The energy signatures were getting stronger as the unknown ships approached. She estimated their size and felt amazed by what the numbers told her. The largest ships in this fleet were bigger than their entire capital city. How many beings would it take to crew such vessels? What kind of civilization built ships on such a massive scale? The first contact message went out on all standard frequencies. It carried greetings in 27 different languages, offers of friendship and assistance, and coordinates for safe approach routes to their world. The Zorathians waited for a response as they had done dozens of times before when meeting new species. Hours passed. The unknown ships continued their approach, but sent no reply to the greeting messages. They maintained their formation and their speed, burning through space toward Zorathia Prime like they had a definite purpose that could not be delayed or changed. Commander Bin tried different frequencies and different languages. He broadcast mathematical sequences and universal symbols that any intelligent species should recognize. Still, the approaching ships remained silent. Their energy signatures grew stronger as they came closer, but they gave no sign that they had received or understood the Zorathian messages. As the hours turned to night on Zorathia Prime, Ambassador Kai stood again on the floating gardens above Luminar. The city lights twinkled below him like stars reflected in still water. Children were being put to bed in their crystal homes, while their parents worked in laboratories and art studios, unaware that massive alien ships were racing toward their peaceful world. Kai looked up at the night sky and tried to imagine what those ships might look like. Were they filled with beings seeking new homes or trading partners? Were they explorers mapping unknown regions of space? Or were they something else entirely? Something that had no place in the peaceful galaxy the Zorathians had always known. He touched his communication device and contacted Commander Bin. Any response to our messages? None, Ambassador. The ships will reach our outer sensor perimeter in 6 hours. Kai felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Something was coming toward their world, something massive and powerful and silent. In 500 years of peace, nothing like this had ever approached Zorathia Prime. He hoped their visitors came in friendship, but he feared they did not. The crystal spires sang their ancient songs in the wind, but tonight their music sounded like a lament for something beautiful that was about to be lost forever. Communications Officer Nari adjusted the deep space monitoring array as she began her night shift aboard the Jupiter station. The massive space platform orbited the gas giant in a slow dance, its sensors constantly scanning the void for signals from across the galaxy. Most nights brought routine traffic from trading ships and research vessels, but occasionally something interesting crossed their detection grid. Tonight felt different. The background radiation patterns were shifting in ways that made Nari check her equipment twice. She ran diagnostic routines on the sensor array and found everything working perfectly. The strange readings were real, coming from somewhere far beyond their normal monitoring range. "Computer, enhance signal resolution and filter background noise," Nari commanded. The artificial intelligence running the station was sophisticated, enough to isolate even the faintest transmissions from cosmic interference. The filtered signal made Nari sit up straight in her chair. This was not random noise or natural phenomena. Someone was broadcasting a distress call from the far side of the galaxy. The transmission was weak and fragmented, filled with static from its journey across impossible distances, but the universal distress codes were unmistakable. Nari activated the emergency communication protocol and opened a direct channel to Earth Fleet Command. Within moments, the calm face of Admiral Tay appeared on her screen. Even at this late hour, the Admiral looked alert and ready for action. His reputation as Earth's most capable military leader was well earned through decades of protecting human colonies from pirates and hostile aliens. "What do you have for me, Officer Nari?" Admiral Tay asked. "Sir, we are receiving a distress signal from the Zorathian system. The transmission is badly degraded, but I can make out references to massive alien attack and request for immediate assistance." Admiral Tay's expression grew serious. The Zorathians were valuable allies who had helped humanity establish peaceful relations with dozens of other species. Their medical technology had saved millions of human lives, and their energy crystals powered many of Earth's frontier colonies. More importantly, they were friends who had always stood ready to help others in need. "Transfer the signal to my command ship immediately," the Admiral ordered. "I want full analysis within the hour." Admiral Tay closed the communication and activated his personal transport. The small ship launched from Jupiter Station and crossed the solar system to where the Dreadnought Indomitable waited in Earth orbit. The massive warship was humanity's newest and most powerful vessel, built to project Earth's protection across the galaxy. At 2 kilometers in length, the Indomitable carried enough firepower to devastate entire fleets and enough troops to conquer planets. The Admiral docked with his ship and went straight to the command center. Chief Tactical Officer Hana was already working on the distress signal analysis when he arrived. Her screens showed fragments of the Zorathian transmission, along with estimated distances and signal degradation calculations. "What is our situation, Officer Hana?" Admiral Tay asked. "The signal is approximately 72 hours old by the time it reached our sensors," Hana reported. "The Zorathians mention an alien fleet of unknown origin attacking their system. They describe the enemy as using biological ships and weapons we have never encountered before. Captain Sung, the ship's strategic operations commander, joined them at the analysis station. He had been studying galactic threat assessments since the signal arrived. Sir, we have no records of any species matching the Zorathian descriptions. These attackers appear to be from outside our known galaxy or from regions we have never explored." Admiral Tay studied the tactical displays showing the Zorathian system. It was far from Earth, nearly at the edge of their operational range. Even using the Indomitable's experimental quantum drive, the journey would take 3 days at maximum speed. If the Zorathians were under attack, every hour could mean thousands of lives lost. "Status of the ship, Captain Sung?" the Admiral asked. "Fully operational, sir. We completed our latest refit last week. All weapon systems are online, quantum drive is functioning perfectly, and we have a full complement of 50,000 crew members. We can depart within 2 hours." Intelligence Officer Jun approached with additional analysis of the distress signal. Her specialty was xenobiology, and she had been studying the fragmentary descriptions of the attacking aliens. "Admiral, based on the Zorathian descriptions, these attackers use biological technology and appear to be extremely aggressive. They mention something called a harvest and describe the aliens as consuming everything in their path." "Consuming?" Admiral Tay asked. "The translations are unclear, sir. but it suggests these aliens do not just conquer territory. They appear to consume entire populations and transform conquered worlds for their own use. Admiral Tay felt anger building in his chest. Humanity had encountered aggressive species before, but none that practiced genocide on such a scale. The galaxy was vast enough for everyone to find homes and resources without destroying others. Any species that chose conquest and consumption over cooperation was a threat to every peaceful civilization. Weapons Coordinator Ray, what is our current armament status? The Admiral asked. Weapons Coordinator Ray pulled up the ship's arsenal displays. The Indomitable carried the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Sir, we have 40 railgun batteries capable of firing projectiles at 10% light speed. We carry 500 plasma torpedoes with variable yield warheads. Our point defense systems include 300 pulse laser arrays and electromagnetic countermeasures. We also have a full squadron of fighter craft and 10,000 marine troops with assault equipment. More than enough to handle any threat we have encountered before, Captain Sung observed. But we do not know what we are facing this time, Admiral Tay replied. The Zorathians are not a military species, but they are not helpless either. If their entire defense fleet has been overwhelmed, these attackers must be extremely powerful. Communications. Officer Nari contacted the ship from Jupiter Station. Admiral, we are receiving additional fragments of the Zorathian signal. The computer has been able to reconstruct more of the message. Transfer it to our analysis center immediately, Admiral Tay ordered. The new signal fragments painted a worse picture than before. The Zorathians described their cities burning and their people being captured. They mentioned biological weapons that poisoned their atmosphere and changed their world into something alien and hostile. Most disturbing of all, they described the complete destruction of their defense fleet in the first few minutes of the attack. Sir, Intelligence Officer June said quietly, if these readings are accurate, the attacking force destroyed 47 Zorathian ships in less than 10 minutes. Even accounting for the fact that Zorathian ships are not heavily armed, that suggests overwhelming superiority in numbers or technology. Admiral Tay made his decision. All departments prepare for immediate departure. We are going to assist our allies and eliminate this threat to galactic peace. Sir, Captain Sung said, we will be operating far from any support. If these aliens are as powerful as the reports suggest, we might be facing odds of hundreds to 1. Then we will have to be better than them, Admiral Tay replied. The Zorathians have been our friends for decades. They have saved human lives and helped us establish peaceful relations across this region of space. We do not abandon our friends. Chief Medical Officer Lee received orders to prepare for mass casualties and potential biological contamination. Engineering teams under Director Park began charging the quantum drive for maximum speed transit. Fighter Squadron Leader May briefed her pilots on long-range combat operations, while Marine Commander 1 prepared his troops for possible planetary assault. Executive Officer Ran coordinated the departure preparations, while Admiral Tay reviewed what little intelligence they had about their destination. The Zorathian system contained one inhabited world and several mining colonies. The population was approximately 50 million beings living in crystal cities that were considered among the most beautiful in the galaxy. If the attackers were conducting the kind of harvest described in the distress signals, those cities would be priority targets. All stations report ready for departure, Executive Officer Ran announced. Admiral Tay took his position on the command bridge. Around him, the most skilled crew in Earth's fleet prepared to take their ship into battle against an unknown enemy far from home. The Indomitable was powerful enough to destroy entire fleets, but even the strongest ship could be overwhelmed by sufficient numbers or superior technology. Activate quantum drive, Admiral Tay commanded. Maximum speed to the Zorathian system. The massive Dreadnought shimmered and vanished from Earth orbit, leaving only distorted space where it had been. In the quantum realm, distance became meaningless and time flowed differently. The Indomitable raced across the galaxy faster than light itself, carrying humanity's response to an alien threat that sought to destroy their friends. On the command bridge, Admiral Tay studied the tactical projections of their destination. In 72 hours, they would arrive at the Zorathian system and discover what remained of their allies' beautiful world. They would face an enemy that had already proven capable of destroying an entire defense fleet in minutes. The Vraxx fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of locusts descending on a fertile field. Their bioships were nightmares made manifest, grown rather than built, with hulls that pulsed like living tissue and weapons that spat death across the void. War Chief Thakmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive creature that had once been a space whale before his people corrupted it into an instrument of war. The Zorathian defense fleet moved to intercept the invaders with courage that their peaceful nature had not prepared them for. Commander Bin led 47 ships against an armada of over 300 Vraxx vessels. His ships carried mining lasers and defensive screens designed to protect against asteroids and space debris, not the bioweapons that now turned space around them into a hell of living fire. Thakmor watched the approaching defenders with amusement. His species had conquered dozens of worlds and consumed entire civilizations. These crystal beings with their pretty ships would provide barely enough resistance to make the hunt interesting. He opened his massive jaws and roared commands to his sub-commanders in the guttural language of his people. The first Zorathian ship to engage the enemy was the patrol vessel Crystal Song under Captain Day. Her crew fired their mining lasers at the nearest Vraxx bioship, cutting deep gouges in its organic hull. For a moment they hoped their weapons might be effective against these strange attackers. Then the bioship healed itself, its wounds closing like living flesh, and returned fire with weapons that sprayed acid across space. Crystal Song's defensive screens held for 30 seconds before the bioacid ate through them like they were made of paper. The Zorathian ship died screaming as the acid dissolved its crystal hull and consumed the crew inside. Captain Day had just enough time to send a final message to Commander Bin before her ship became a cloud of dissolving debris. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as the Zorathian defense fleet discovered that nothing in their peaceful experience had prepared them for war against the Vraxx. Their weapons were designed for construction and mining, not combat. Their shields were meant to stop space dust and radiation, not bioweapons that could eat through any material. Their tactics were based on rescue operations and emergency response, not the brutal calculus of military action. Commander Bin watched his fleet die ship by ship as he tried desperately to coordinate some kind of effective resistance. The Vraxx bioships moved like living creatures, flowing around his formations and striking from unexpected angles. Their weapons were unlike anything in the Zorathian databases, each one specifically evolved to destroy and consume rather than simply disable or destroy. All ships fall back to planetary defense positions, Bin commanded. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. The Vraxx had brought enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. His small fleet of peaceful vessels could not stop them, could barely slow them down. The retreat became a rout as the surviving Zorathian ships tried to reach the safety of their planetary defenses. The Vraxx pursued them like predators chasing wounded prey, their bioships accelerating impossibly fast as they closed in for the kill. One by one, the remaining defenders died until only Commander Bin's command ship remained, limping toward Zorathia Prime on damaged engines. Thakmor decided to let the last ship escape. It would carry word of the Vraxx power to the planet below, spreading fear among the population and making the harvest easier. Fear was a useful tool, making prey animals more compliant and easier to process. He had learned this lesson on dozens of worlds across the galaxy. On Zorathia Prime, the population watched their protectors die in the space above their heads. The crystal cities that had known only peace for 5 centuries now looked up at stars filled with enemy ships. In the capital city of Luminar, Ambassador Kai stood in the emergency command center with the surviving members of the High Council, trying to comprehend the magnitude of the disaster that had befallen their world. 46 ships destroyed, reported senior scientist Yuna, her voice hollow with shock. Commander Bin's vessel is heavily damaged but still functional. Estimated enemy strength is over 300 vessels, all using biological technology we cannot counter with our current defenses. Council member Wu, who had served as military advisor during the few minor crises in their recent history, stared at the tactical displays with growing horror. Our orbital platforms cannot stop a force of this size. Our ground defenses are designed to handle pirates and raiders, not a full invasion fleet. Ambassador Kai activated the planetary communication system and addressed the 50 million Zorathians living in their crystal cities across the planet. His voice remained calm despite the terror he felt inside. Citizens of Zorathia Prime, we are under attack by an unknown alien force. All non-essential personnel should move to the underground. Shelters immediately. Defense forces should report to their assigned positions. We will fight to protect our world and our way of life. The response was immediate but chaotic. Zorathians had practiced emergency drills for natural disasters like solar flares and asteroid impacts, but never for military invasion. Families packed quickly and moved toward the shelter entrances while defense teams activated what few weapons their peaceful society possessed. Scientists and engineers worked frantically to modify their industrial equipment into makeshift weapons. In space above them, the Vraxx fleet reached orbital distance and began the next phase of their assault. Thakmor ordered his bioships to release their spores into the upper atmosphere. The spores were specially evolved organisms that would transform the planet's environment into something suitable for Vraxx larvae. Within days, the beautiful crystal world would become a breeding ground for the next generation of his species. The spores fell like rain across Zorathia Prime, each one carrying bioweapons designed to corrupt and consume. Where they landed, the crystal gardens began to wither and die. The singing spires of Luminar grew silent as the alien organisms attacked their living structure. Rivers turned acidic, and the sky darkened with clouds of toxic gas. Medical officer. Lin worked desperately in the emergency medical centers as the first casualties arrived. Zorathians who had been exposed to the spores showed symptoms unlike anything in their medical databases. Their crystal-like skin became cloudy and cracked. Their natural bioluminescence dimmed and flickered like dying stars. Worst of all, some of the infected began changing into something that was no longer recognizably Zorathian. The spores are not just poisoning our people, Lin reported to Ambassador Kai. They are transforming them into something else. I believe the enemy intends to use our own population as raw material for their biological weapons. Kai felt sick as he understood the true horror of what they faced. The Vraxx were not just conquerors seeking territory or resources. They were a plague that consumed entire species and twisted them into tools for further conquest. Every world they captured became a breeding ground for more Vraxx and more bioweapons to use against the next target. Resistance leader Day had gathered the surviving military personnel in the tunnel networks beneath Luminar. The underground. Passages had been built as emergency shelters against natural disasters, but now they served as the last refuge for organized resistance. His forces numbered fewer than 10,000, armed with mining equipment and construction tools hastily modified for combat. We cannot win a direct confrontation with these invaders, Day explained to his assembled fighters. Our only hope is to delay them long enough for rescue to arrive or for our scientists to develop some kind of countermeasure against their bioweapons. But even as he spoke, Day knew that rescue was unlikely. The Zorathians had sent distress signals to every ally and trading partner in the galaxy, but their friends were peaceful species like themselves. None of them possessed military forces capable of challenging the Vraxx fleet. The message had traveled as far as the human colonies, but even if the humans responded immediately, they could not arrive for days. Above ground, the first Vraxx landing. Ships descended through the poisoned atmosphere like falling meteors. These were not mechanical transports, but living creatures bred specifically for planetary assault. They landed in the major population centers and split open like rotten fruit, disgorging hordes of Vraxx ground troops into the dying crystal cities. B. Vraxx warriors were nightmares given flesh, evolved for violence and destruction. They stood 3 meters tall on 4 legs like giant insects, with armored carapaces that could deflect most weapons and claws that could tear through crystal and metal alike. Their faces were masses of teeth and sensory organs designed for hunting. Prey in any environment, War Chief Thakmor personally led the assault on Luminar, his massive form dwarfing even his largest warriors. He had grown to twice the size of a normal Vraxx through centuries of consuming conquered enemies. His bioarmor was fused with trophies taken from dozens of worlds, making him a walking monument to the species his people had destroyed. The Zorathian. Defenders fought with desperate courage, but their mining lasers and construction equipment were pathetically inadequate against enemies bred for war. Space twisted and screamed as the Indomitable dropped out of quantum drive at the edge of the Zorathian system. Admiral Tay stood on the command bridge watching the tactical displays populate with data from their long-range sensors. What he saw made his jaw clench with cold fury. The beautiful system he remembered from diplomatic visits was now a scene of systematic destruction. "Sensor report," Admiral Tay commanded. Intelligence Officer June worked frantically at her station as the ship's advanced scanners analyzed the battlefield. "Sir, I am detecting massive biological signatures throughout the system. The enemy fleet consists of approximately 300 vessels, all using organic technology. Zorathia Prime shows extensive atmospheric contamination and multiple landing sites. Any sign of Zorathian resistance? Minimal, sir. I am detecting some defensive positions in the underground areas of major cities, but most surface installations have been destroyed or compromised." Admiral Tay studied the holographic display showing the Vraxx fleet. The alien bioships were spread throughout the system like a cancer, with the largest concentration in orbit around Zorathia Prime. Several were actually attached to the planet's surface like gigantic parasites, pumping something into the atmosphere that turned the sky, a sickly green color. "Communications? Any response to our hails?" the Admiral asked. Communications Officer Nari shook her head. "The Vraxx ships are not responding to any standard protocols, sir. However, I am receiving fragmented transmissions from underground positions on Zorathia Prime. Ambassador Kai is still alive and coordinating resistance from beneath Luminar. Put me through to him." The communication link crackled with interference from the biological contamination affecting the planet's atmosphere. Ambassador Kai's voice came through weakly, filled with static and strain. "Admiral Tay, thank the stars you received our signal. The situation here is desperate. These creatures are not just conquering our world, they are transforming it into something alien. We are here to help, Ambassador. What is your tactical situation?" "Most of our cities have fallen. The enemy uses biological weapons that poison our atmosphere and transform our people into something else. We estimate less than 10 million survivors remain in underground shelters. The surface will be completely uninhabitable within hours." Admiral Tay felt his anger building as he understood the true scope of what the Vraxx were doing. This was not conquest, but genocide followed by environmental transformation. They were turning an entire world into a breeding ground for their species, while eliminating every trace of the civilization that had built it. "Admiral," interrupted Weapons Coordinator Ray, "the enemy fleet is moving to intercept us. Estimated 300 vessels approaching in attack formation. Time to engagement? 20 minutes at current velocity, sir." Admiral Tay looked around his command bridge at the faces of his crew. These were the finest officers in Earth's fleet, veterans of dozens of conflicts who had never faced anything like the biological nightmare approaching them. The Indomitable was the most powerful ship humanity had ever built, but they were outnumbered nearly 300 to 1. "All hands, this is Admiral Tay," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We are facing an enemy that practices genocide and biological warfare on a scale we have never encountered. They have destroyed our allies' civilization and are transforming their world into a breeding ground for more monsters. Today we show these creatures what happens when they threaten the innocent." "Sir," Captain Sung reported, "all weapon systems are online and ready. Fighter squadrons are prepared for launch. Marine units are standing by for planetary assault operations." "Very good. When we engage, our priority is destroying their orbital assets and breaking their ability to continue poisoning the planet. Secondary objective is eliminating as many bioships as possible to prevent them from escaping to threaten other worlds." Chief Tactical Officer Hana analyzed the approaching enemy formation. The Vraxx bioships moved in patterns unlike any mechanical fleet, flowing and shifting like a school of predatory fish. Their formation had no obvious weak points or command structure that human tactics could exploit. "Sir, recommend we engage from maximum range using railgun batteries," Hana suggested. Our projectile weapons should be effective against biological targets, and engaging at distance will reduce their ability to use whatever close-range weapons they possess. Agreed. All batteries target the largest bioships first. Fire when ready. The Indomitable's 40 railgun batteries swiveled toward the approaching enemy and began their deadly work. Projectiles accelerated to 10% of light speed crossed, the distance between fleets in seconds, striking the lead Vraxx vessels with devastating effect. The kinetic energy released by each impact was equivalent to a nuclear weapon, turning massive bioships into clouds of organic debris. War Chief Thakmor felt his flagship shudder as human projectiles tore through his fleet. He had never encountered weapons that struck with such precision and power from such enormous range. His bioships were healing from the damage, but the rate of destruction was faster than their regeneration could compensate for. All vessels, close to combat range, Thakmor roared to his subcommanders. Use swarm tactics to overwhelm their defensive systems. The Vraxx fleet accelerated toward the human Dreadnought like a living tide of destruction. Their bioships sprouted additional weapons as they charged, growing new gun pods and missile launchers from their organic hulls. Some vessels split apart into smaller units, multiplying the number of targets the Indomitable had to track and engage. Enemy vessels are subdividing, sir, reported Tactical Officer Hana. Estimated target count now approaching 600 individual units. Activate point defense systems, Admiral Tay commanded. All pulse laser arrays continuous fire. The space around the Indomitable erupted in a storm of coherent light as 300 pulse laser arrays created an impenetrable barrier around the massive ship. Vraxx bioships that entered the defensive perimeter were instantly vaporized by the concentrated firepower. Others were crippled and left drifting as the human ship's defensive systems proved far more effective than anything the aliens had encountered before. But the Vraxx had numbers on their side, and they pressed their attack with suicidal determination. Bioships rammed themselves against the Indomitable's shields, exploding in bursts of acid and organic weapons designed to eat through any material. Others launched living projectiles that tried to attach themselves to the human ship's hull and begin the process of biological corruption. Shields at 60%, reported Engineering Director Park. The biological agents are trying to compromise our hull integrity, but our defensive systems are neutralizing them before they can establish a foothold. Fighter Squadron Leader May launched her craft from the Indomitable's hangar bays, leading 50 of humanity's most advanced fighter ships into the swirling battle. Her pilots were veterans of combat against pirates and raiders, but nothing had prepared them for the nightmare of fighting living ships that could reshape themselves during battle. All fighters, focus on the larger bioships, May commanded, over the squadron frequency. Use precision strikes to disable their regeneration centers. The human fighters danced through the battle like deadly angels, their advanced engines and weapons allowing them to outmaneuver the Vraxx bioships despite being heavily outnumbered. Plasma torpedoes and pulse lasers struck with surgical precision, targeting the organic nodes that controlled each bioship's healing systems. Meanwhile, the Indomitable continued its devastating barrage. The ship's main batteries fired continuously, each salvo destroying multiple enemy vessels. The human crew worked with mechanical precision, loading and firing their weapons faster than any biological crew could match. Their targeting systems tracked hundreds of targets simultaneously, prioritizing threats and maximizing destruction with every shot. War Chief Thakmor watched his fleet dying around him and felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest: fear. His species had overwhelmed every enemy they encountered through superior numbers and biological weapons that could corrupt any defense. But these humans fought with cold efficiency that made his warriors look primitive by comparison. Focus all. Fire on their primary vessel, Thakmor commanded. Sacrifice everything to destroy their flagship. The remaining Vraxx bioships converged on the Indomitable in a desperate final assault. They ignored the human fighters and point defense systems, accepting massive casualties to close with their primary target. Some attached themselves to the Dreadnought's hull and began releasing bioweapons directly against the ship's armor. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, reported Damage Control Officer Lee. Biological contamination detected in sections 40 through 60. Emergency containment protocols are in effect. Admiral Tay felt his ship shudder under the combined assault, but remained calm. All available power to forward batteries. Target their command vessel. The Indomitable's most powerful weapons swiveled toward War Chief Thakmor's flagship. The massive bioship was larger than anything else in the Vraxx fleet, its organic hull studded with the trophies of conquered worlds. It represented centuries of genocide and destruction, a living monument to the suffering this species had caused across the galaxy. The poisoned sky above Zorathia Prime began to clear as the Indomitable's atmospheric processors worked to neutralize the Vraxx bioweapons. Admiral Tay stood in the ship's observation deck watching his crew save a dying world with the same efficiency they had used to destroy its attackers. Engineering teams worked around the clock to deploy countermeasures against the biological contamination, while medical units prepared to treat millions of infected survivors. Colonel Hyun led the first wave of marine dropships through the clearing atmosphere toward the underground shelters of Luminar. His 10,000 troops carried specialized equipment designed for biological warfare cleanup, along with enough medical supplies to treat an entire planet. The Marines had trained for situations like this, but none had expected to use their skills saving crystal beings from alien parasites. All units, maintain full biological containment protocols, Hyun commanded as his dropship approached the ruined capital city. The enemy bioweapons are still active in many areas. Use extreme caution when approaching any organic growth that does not match local ecosystem patterns. The Marines deployed from their dropships into a landscape that looked like a nightmare version of the beautiful world they had come to save. The crystal spires of Luminar were cracked and darkened, their singing voices silenced forever. Strange organic growths covered much of the city, pulsing with alien life that fed on the dying Zorathian structures. The very air shimmered with biological agents that would have been lethal to any unprotected life form. Marine Commander 1 established a secure perimeter around the main shelter entrance, while his teams used plasma torches to burn away the alien growths. The Vraxx had been thorough in their biological assault, seeding the entire planet with organisms designed to transform it into a breeding ground for their species. Eliminating every trace of contamination would take months of careful work. Deep underground, Ambassador Kai received word that human forces had reached the surface. The Zorathian leader had spent 3 days watching his civilization die while praying for rescue that he had begun to believe would never come. Now, soldiers from Earth were cutting through the biological barriers that had sealed his people in their shelters like insects trapped in amber. Ambassador Kai, this is Colonel Hyun of the Earth Alliance Marines, came the voice through the communication system. We have secured the area around your shelter. Medical teams are standing by to treat contamination exposure. Are you ready for evacuation procedures? Colonel, we have nearly 2 million survivors in the shelter networks beneath Luminar alone, Kai replied. Many have been exposed to the alien bioweapons and are showing symptoms we cannot treat with our medical technology. Understood, sir. Our medical teams specialize in biological warfare treatment. We will have your people evacuated and treated within hours. The first group of Zorathian survivors to emerge from the underground shelters gasped in amazement at what they saw. The human Marines moved with practiced efficiency, their powered armor protecting them from biological hazards while their weapons eliminated any remaining Vraxx organisms. Medical teams in full containment suits worked to identify and treat survivors showing signs of biological infection. Chief Medical Officer Lee had established a field hospital in the ruins of Luminar's main plaza using portable medical equipment. That was more advanced than anything the Zorathians possessed. The human medical technology could identify and neutralize biological agents at the molecular level, literally rebuilding contaminated tissue one cell at a time. The infection patterns are unlike anything we have encountered before, Lee reported to Admiral Tay. The Vraxx bioweapons are designed to rewrite the genetic structure of their victims, transforming them into biological components for the enemy war machine. However, our medical nanites can reverse the process if we catch it early enough. Medical Officer Lin worked alongside the human doctors, amazed by their ability to treat conditions that Zorathian medicine had considered hopeless. Victims who had been partially transformed by Vraxx bioweapons were being restored to their original forms. Children who had been exposed to the alien spores were recovering completely thanks to human medical intervention. Your technology is miraculous, Lin told Chief Medical Officer Lee as they worked together to treat a group of infected Zorathians. You are literally bringing our people back from biological death. We learned these techniques fighting other species that used biological warfare, Lee replied. Humanity has encountered many threats over the centuries, and we have developed countermeasures for most forms of biological and chemical attack. Meanwhile, Admiral Tay coordinated the broader rescue operation from the Indomitable's command center. His ship's sensors had located survivors in underground shelters across the planet, and Marine units were working to reach each site before the biological contamination could spread further. The operation required precise timing and massive resources, but the Admiral was determined to save every Zorathian life possible. Status report from all units, Admiral Tay requested. Executive Officer Ran consulted the tactical displays showing rescue operations across Zorathia Prime. Sir, we have successfully reached 60% of known survivor locations. Estimated total survivors, 43 million Zorathians. Medical teams report that 80% of contamination cases can be successfully treated with our current resources. What about the planetary ecosystem? Environmental teams report that complete biological decontamination will require approximately 6 months of intensive effort. However, we can restore the atmosphere to breathable levels within 2 weeks. As the rescue operations continued, Admiral Tay received a communication request from Ambassador Kai. The Zorathian leader had been brought aboard the Indomitable for treatment of minor biological exposure, and he wanted to speak with the human commander who had saved his world. Admiral Tay, I cannot adequately express the gratitude of my people, Ambassador Kai said as they met in the ship's medical bay. Your arrival prevented the complete extinction of our civilization. Without human intervention, the Vraxx would have consumed every life on our world within days. The Vraxx chose to make themselves enemies of all peaceful species in the galaxy, Admiral Tay replied. We could not allow such genocide to succeed. Your species possesses military capabilities that we never imagined possible. You destroyed a fleet of 300 ships with a single vessel. Your technology neutralized biological weapons that our science could not even analyze. How did humanity become so powerful? Admiral Tay considered his answer carefully. The Zorathians were peaceful beings who had never needed to understand the brutal realities of galactic warfare. We learned through necessity, Ambassador. Humanity has faced many threats over the centuries, and we have survived by becoming very good at protecting ourselves and our allies. The galaxy is more dangerous than we realized, Kai admitted. We believed that peaceful contact and mutual cooperation would prevent conflicts like this. The Vraxx showed us how naive we were. Peace is a worthy goal, but it must be defended by those strong enough to fight for it. The Zorathians have many gifts that benefit the galaxy, but military power is not among them. That is why alliances exist. Ambassador Kai was quiet for a long moment as he considered the implications of what had happened to his world. Admiral, the High Council will want to discuss our relationship with the Earth Alliance. We need to ensure that such an attack can never succeed against us again. Earth would be honored to strengthen our alliance with Zorathia. We can provide military protection and training to help your people defend themselves in the future. 2 weeks later, the sky above Zorathia Prime was blue again for the first time since the Vraxx attack. The biological contamination had been neutralized and the atmosphere restored to its natural composition. Construction teams were working to rebuild the damaged cities, while Zorathian survivors emerged from their shelters to reclaim their world. A formal ceremony was held in the ruins of Luminar's Great Plaza, where Ambassador Kai addressed a gathering of Zorathian survivors and their human rescuers. The crystal beings who had once built their entire civilization around peaceful cooperation now understood that such peace could only exist when protected by those willing to fight for it. Citizens of Zorathia Prime, we gather today to honor those who gave their lives defending our world, and to thank our human allies who arrived when all hope seemed lost, Kai announced. The Vraxx sought to harvest our civilization and transform our world into a breeding ground for their species. They believed we were helpless prey with no protectors. The ambassador paused and looked up at the Indomitable hanging in orbit like a guardian angel made of metal and weapons. They were wrong. Earth's Dreadnought arrived just in time to show these monsters that genocide will not be tolerated in our galaxy. Admiral Tay and his crew proved that some species can be trusted to stand against the darkness no matter what the cost. Admiral Tay stepped forward to address the gathered crowd. The Zorathians have been valued allies and friends to humanity. For decades, your medical technology has saved millions of human lives. Your energy crystals power our frontier colonies. More importantly, you have shown the galaxy that different species can work together for mutual benefit.